Good afternoon, students. I welcome you all for the class. Today, we'll be going to discuss another topic in the first unit, that is program control. And next, status bit conditions. And later on, we'll be going to study regarding the interrupts. Fine. These are the three topics that we are going to see in the today's class. So, what do you mean by a program control? So, program control, the name itself indicates that, like, these are the machine codes, these are the instructions, or we can say that these are used by the machine or in an assembler language by the user to command the processor to act accordingly. So that is the major purpose of the program control. So we'll be going to have some of the many instructions in this program control. We call those are program control instructions. Fine. Program control instructions are also there. So here these program control instructions are going to be used in order to like instruct this just a moment. In order to instruct this computer, like in order to make a number of changes in the computer, like we'll be going for the program control instructions. So here these program control instructions are of different types. So let me tell you these this what do you mean by a program control, in the sense this program control is used by the machine. So it is used by machine. So for what purpose? To command the processor to act accordingly. To command the processor. So we can't command the processor directly. Through some program control instructions, we have to command the processor. So these instructions are always stored in successive memory locations. So when the CPU is processing the instructions, the instructions are fetched from the consecutive memory locations and we are going to execute one by one. So this is the program control instruction. The purpose of this program control is to command the processor to act accordingly. Like we are having different types of instructions. So these instructions are used in assembly language by user also, fine. But in this user code is translated into machine code, and thus instructions are passed to the processor to do any sort of task. So this is the procedure we will be going to follow. So these you are used by the assembly language program or assembly language by the user also we can transfer. So but this user code, first what it is going to do is this user code is going to be translated. First this user code is going to be translated into machine code. Fine. After this machine code, and thus these instructions are passed to whom? To pass it to the processor, so that the processor will act accordingly. So that is the importance of program control instructions. So there are different types of program control instructions. So here some of the instructions I have listed here. So branch instruction, jump, skip, call, return, compare, test, all these are different program control instructions. So by making use of these instructions, we are controlling the processor to do any sort of work. So some of the important are compare instructions are very important, and these unconditional branch instructions are very important. And in this branch you will be going to have the conditional, and another one is unconditional. So these branch instructions are very important. And subroutines, like we can call it as an subroutine call and return instructions, halting instructions, and interrupt instructions. So all these are very important instructions in order to command the processor to do any sort of work. Fine. So when we are going to talk regarding this mm, program control instructions. So the major importantly will be going for the compare instructions. So what the compare instructions is specifically do is it specifically provided which is similar to a subtract instruction. So except the result is not stored anywhere, but some flags are set according to the result. Suppose compare in the sense 2 minus 2 and 5. So I have 2 minus 5, that is equals to minus 3. So minus 3, based on this negative result, some flags are going to be set. Like we'll be going to have different flags, flag resistors like a zero flag, sign flag, carry flag, parity flag, even flag, odd flag. So different flags are there. So based on the results, the flags are going to be set and reset. The best example of compare instructions are compare R1 comma R2. So whatever the data that is present in R1 is compared with the data present in R2, and again the result will be stored in R1 register only. So that is the compare instruction. Suppose unconditional branch instructions. So when it comes to unconditional branch instructions, like in unconditional branch instructions, we come across jump, JMP, this jump and move. So these two comes under this unconditional branch instruction. So it causes an unconditional change of execution sequence. So if a sequence is like it is happening like this, if I said the jump over here, this is 1 2 3 4 5 6 instruction. So when the processor is executing third instruction and I have set to jump to 6 in the sense, it will not execute 4 5 instructions, it will directly jump to 6th instruction. So these jump and move instructions will alter the sequence of a program and they will jump to new location. When it comes to the conditional branch instructions. So these conditional branch instructions is used to examine the value stored in the condition code register. So for what? In order to determine whether the specific code exists and to branch if it does. So that is the purpose of this branch instruction. So by making use of program control instructions, we can instruct the computer, or else we can we can say the computer, we can give the command to the processor so that the processor will act accordingly. And the next important topic is status bit conditions. So as I have said you in the previous example, here minus 3, the result was minus 3. So here corresponding flags will be set. So what are the flags and what is the diagram of the status of the different flags we will be going to see in this status bit conditions. So this is the diagram showing status resistors. So here we'll be going to have 4 resistors. Fine. See here, if you are going to see here, C is the carry resistor and S is the sign resistor, Z is the zero flag, not resistor, sorry, zero flag, and V is the overflow flag. These are the different flags. So based on the output of the ALU, like based on the output, these flags are going to be set or reset. Suppose suppose if I have added two numbers, so if it produces a carry or not, we have to check in the ALU. ALU in the sense arithmetic and logical unit, fine, as we all know. So all the arithmetic and logical operations are going to be done in ALU. So instead of checking each and every time in ALU, we are keeping the flags. If the output result, here F7 minus F0, here the output result is 0, then this zero flag is going to be checked. We need not go for ALU and we need not check for the result. If the zero flag is set to 1, then we can say that the output result is 0. If the sign flag is set to 1, we can say that we have generated the value. Like that we will be going to see over here. So by seeing the diagram, we can by seeing the status of these flags, different flags, we can check or we can say the things. Fine. It is sometimes convenient to supplement the ALU circuit in the CPU with a status register. So every time we need not go to this ALU unit and we can't check the result. Sometimes this ALU unit is replaced by the status registers. Fine, is replaced by status registers. So where the status bit conditions can be stored for further analysis. Here status bits are also called as condition code bits or flag bits. So the status bits are also called as condition code bits, or status bits. It is going to tell the status of each and every operation. That's the reason we are going to say that it has condition code bits or status bits. Here, as I have said you, there are four status bits that are symbolized by here C, S, Z and V. C is used for carry flag, S is used for sign flag, Z is used for zero flag and V is used for overflow flag. So let us talk regarding this carry flag. Here this carry flag is set to 1. When it will be set to 1? So if the end carry in the sense here C7, this 8 bit, C7, C8 bits are connected over here. So F0 to F7, F7 in the sense here 8 bits, right? So 0 to 7 or 1 to 8. So if F0 to F7 or 1 to 8, if the last bit C8 bit, if this C8 bit is end carry is, that is this is set to 1. Like if I have added 7 plus 4, so you will be going to have 11. So this is an end carry. If this C8 bit is set to 1, if the end carry C8 is 1, then it is clear to 0 if the carry is 0. Fine. So if it is C8 bit is 1, then this carry bit is 1. If it is 0, this is also will be going to be 0. So that is the carry bit. Fine. And next one is the S bit. S in the sense sign bit. This sign bit is set to 1 if the highest order bit F is 1. So this is set to 1. Sign in the sense if a highest order bit, like as I have said you, like highest order bits will be there and lower order bits will be there. So if the highest order bit is 1, then this sign flag is going to be set to 1. If this highest order bit is 0, then this sign flag is set to 0. And next one is 0 flag. This 0 flag is set to 1. When it will be set to 1 in the sense, if the output of ALU contains, so here this ALU, this is the output of ALU. If the output of ALU contains all zeros, then this 0 flag is going to be set to 1. In other words, if Z is equal to 1, the output is 0 and Z is equals to 0. Fine. So that is the, this is how the Z flag is going to be set. And last comes the V. V in the sense overflow flag. When this overflow flag will set in the sense, if this overflow flag is set to 1, like here this is an XOR gate. This is an XOR gate. So here the last two carries is equals to 1. If this is equals to 1, then this overflow is equals to 1 and clear to 0 otherwise. Fine. This is the condition for an overflow when negative numbers are in 2's complement. So this is the diagram that is going to show the status bits. So we can replace this arithmetic and logical unit with the status bit. If you want to know the, if the output is 0, we cannot go and check in the arithmetic unit by simply seeing that 0 flag. If the output 0 flag is 1, then we can say that the output of this arithmetic and logical unit is 0. So here C8 bit is set to 1. Here we can say that the carry has been generated. If this S1 is set to 1, then we will be going to say that the higher order bit is set to 1. Then we will be going to say it is set to 1. So by checking the status of these flags, we can estimate the exact output what it has occurred. So that is the thing over here in the theory. Like you can go through this slide. So here if bit C is C in the sense carry. Carry is set to 1 if the end carry of C8 is 1, as I have said you in the diagram. This sign bit is set to 1 if the higher order bit F is set to 1. If bit Z is 0, then what it means? is set to 1, the output of ALU contains all zeros, then the 0 bit is set to 1. This overflag is set to 1 if the exclusive OR is equals to 1. So these are the status bit condition. Why status bit? In the sense, here the ALU can be replaced with status bit. Fine, replaced with status bit condition. So this is very important topic for your 2-mark questions, right? And the next one is conditional branch instructions. So conditional branch instructions, in the sense, like based on the conditions, the instructions are going to be varied. So here, what are the conditional branch instructions? So these are the different conditional branch instructions. You have to remember the mnemonics as well as what is the operation condition. So BZ in the sense branch if 0, BNZ in the sense branch if not 0, BC branch if carry, branch in the sense jump to that particular location if it provides a carry. So branch if it is not 0. So B in the sense branch if plus, branch if minus, overflow, not overflow. So these are the branch conditional branch instructions. So compare instructions in the sense branch if higher order, branch if higher order is equal, branch if higher order is lower. Like that, these are the different conditional branch instructions we are having. And the next topic is subroutine call and return. So what do you mean by a subroutine call and return? Like you have seen in your first year PPS, fine, subroutines. Subroutines in the sense like shifting. Shifting means to a particular thing. Fine. Subroutine, like when we can say a subroutine, like a sequence of a program instructions which is used to perform a specific task. So this unit can be used in a program as wherever the particular task should be performed. Fine. So by the use of this subroutines, we can set and reset the flags also. Fine. This is used repeatedly in a program. So we can call these are the set of instructions which are used repeatedly in a program. So that we call it as a subroutine. So all the repeated program instructions, we are going to keep it in a routine so that we are going to use it. So when a subroutine is required, it can be called many times during the execution. So here we can call that subroutine many times. For example, here it is my program. This is my program. Here add instruction is there. So this add instruction, I am keeping it in a subroutine. Or we can also say it as a function, right? So whenever the controller encounters here, so I'll be going to here, I'll be going to do my particular task, and again I'm going to return here. So and again here also I got an add instruction. Whenever I got an add instruction, I'll be going to that place, executing to the task and returning the value. So this is how a subroutine is going to be called. The most common names for using a subroutine is jump to subroutine, branch to subroutine, or branch and save addresses. Fine. Here, what are the two operations that is executed when we are going to performing the subroutine? So here, as I have said you here, so this address, these are 5 instructions are there, 1 2 3 4th instruction. The address of 4th instruction is 1060. So what are the two operations when we are going to perform a subroutine in the sense? So the address of the next instruction available in the program counter is stored in a temporary location, which is, so the subroutine knows where to return. So here 1060. Now the program control shift to add location. Again the control has to return to that add instruction only. How it will be going to return? In the sense, this address is going to be stored in the program counter. So this is the next address that is going to be executed. So by checking the program counter, after this instruction, the program counter is going to have the next instruction address. So that is going to be executed. So again the control is transferred to the beginning of the subroutine. So these are the two operations when we are going to perform a subroutine. And next important topic is interrupt. Interrupt is nothing but halting the sequence halting the processor. Halting the processor is nothing but when CPU is performing an X instruction. Here a printer needs the CPU. So this printer is sending an interrupt to CPU. So CPU, what it will do? It will stop the current execution of the programmer and the CPU will attend this interrupt. After completion of that interrupt, again it will resume this X instruction. So that is an interrupt. So program interrupt refers to the transfer of program control from currently running program. What is the currently running program? This X is the currently running program to another service program. Service program is nothing but the printer as a result of an external or internal generated request. This request what we are keeping from printer to the CPU, that request we call it as an interrupt. And control returns to the original program after this service has been completed. After the printer service has been requested, it's been completed, again it will be going to coming back to the original instruction. So there are different types of interrupts. So the first one is the external interrupt, internal interrupt, software interrupt and the hardware interrupt. The first one is external interrupt. As the name itself indicates, external interrupt come from the IO devices like peripheral devices like from the monitoring the power supply or from any other external source, we call it as an external interrupt. So externally we call it as outside, from outside we call it as an external interrupt. So internal interrupts are in the internally, which is divided by 0, we call it as an internal interrupt. Why? Because in the program this is an interrupt, the program will halt at that time. The best example of internal interrupt is divided by 0. So internal error conditions are register overflow, so divided by 0, stack overflow, all these causes the internal interrupts. It will halt the program for some time when these interrupts have been occurred. Software interrupts. So this is initiated by executing an instruction. Software interrupts is a special call interrupt that behaves as an interrupt rather than subroutine call. So what this says, this is used by the programmer. These software interrupts are used by the programmer to initiate an interrupt procedure. These are the software interrupts. When it comes to the hardware interrupts, so hardware interrupts are from the external devices. So there are two types, maskable and unmaskable. Maskable in the sense, as I have said you, the CPU is executing some X instruction and some Y instruction also need the processor time. So CPU is currently executing this instruction. So maskable interrupts in the sense, so the hardware interrupts which can be delayed when a much higher priority interrupt can be occurred. Suppose for each and everything we are going to give priority. Suppose this currently X instruction is having the third priority and this Y is having the second priority. What the CPU will do is maskable in the sense, CPU will halt the currently executing program and it will attend the Y task which is of highest priority. So halting the currently execution and giving chance to highest priority is known as maskable interrupts. Non-maskable interrupt in the sense, even though the priority is higher, it will not stop the currently executing program until unless it is completed. So delayed and should be processed by the immediately we can't process this interrupt. So this is the maskable and non-maskable interrupts. Fine. This is how we'll be going to have the different types of interrupts. Fine. And many of the things we have covered today. So when we are going to see the things, like what you will be going to do is program control in the sense, like these are the instructions that are going to instruct the processor to do a particular task. Status bits in the sense, as the ALU is performing all the tasks of arithmetic and logical unit, this arithmetic and logical unit sometimes can be replaced by the status bit conditions or status bit flags. So depending on the set and reset of flags, like we'll be going to say the answer. If the 0 flag is set to 1, we can say that the output of the ALU is 0. Sign flag is set to 1, we can say that the seventh bit is going to be 1. Like that, by seeing the flags only we can estimate the answer. When it comes to the interrupts, halting the program, CPU program, is known as an interrupt. Different types: external interrupts which is coming from outside, internal interrupts which are coming from the inside, software interrupts which is initiated by the software. So all these are the different types of interrupts. Hardware interrupts, in the sense, like the hardware problem interrupts, we call it as an hardware interrupts. Again, there are two divisions: maskable and non-maskable. Maskable in the sense we can't stop in the middle. We can stop in the middle. Maskable in the sense we can halt the program in the middle and give the program control to higher priority. Non-maskable in the sense we can't halt the process even though the higher priority is waiting. Fine. These are the things that we have studied today, gone through the video, and with this interrupts you have completed your first unit. Go through the syllabus, and if you are having any doubts, you can feel free to ask your doubts. Fine. Thank you all students, and that's all for today's class. Have a great day, students.